Last time we rattled our brains about the Kirby universe, it was around the idea of Kirby being one of the most deadliest Nintendo characters out there. If his black hole mouth doesn't kill ya, surely his Dragon Ball Z world-ending punch will. Speaking of worlds meeting their untimely end, how about Kirby 64's Shivers Star? Now if you've been around the internet for the past decade or so, you probably heard people talk about how Kirby 64's Shivers Star looks like a post-apocalyptic Earth. If we dump the texture from the game and look at it in its entirety, it surely does match up quite nicely. Now, one could argue that the artist simply got lazy, grabbed an Earth texture, and went on a Photoshop filter killing spree. But actually, no, that's probably what happened. It's a very common occurrence in games, honestly. Lots of designers do it. Look at the planet Regal from Sega's Phantasy Star Online. It looks like someone just took an Earth texture, went into Photoshop, and content-awared the hell out of it. It's literally a smeared reskin of Earth. However, swinging back over to the world of Kirby, it presents us with an interesting situation. It's not just the icon of the world that resembles Earth. The surface of the planet does as well. It's a winter wonderland that Kirby gets to navigate through. And the farther along in his Shiverstar journey that he is, the more Earth-like it becomes. Eventually, Kirby happens upon an abandoned mall that he explores in one of the final stages of the area. Abandoned as in not occupied by anything other than enemies trying to kill him. Since the whole planet appears to be in a perpetual ice storm, one may assume that the planet itself is within an ice age. Perhaps this is what killed off the population of this once thriving Earth. Maybe it was an asteroid or something that set this in motion. Or maybe it was something else entirely. And that something else entirely is what we're going to be talking about today. It'd be simple to write off Shiverstar as a post-apocalyptic Earth that was felled by an asteroid, but to some degree that doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. The snowfall on the ground is relatively light, and everything seems to be intact. Vegetation seems to be abundant, as we can see trees outside, and there's even a greenhouse-like area in the mall. It just looks like a typical non-severe winter. I think that's what is most strange about Shiverstar in general. Ice ages affect the whole planet, but the coldest parts are still near the North and South poles, even though many people visualize an ice age as the entire planet being completely frozen. That's not really the case. That's why Shiverstar is bizarre. But humans had obviously advanced enough for shelters to be built, and technology surely was pretty far along. But that's what makes this twice as confusing. If humans could survive, where were they? Why is everything abandoned from a human standpoint? Well, I think it was something else that felled the human race, or at least forced them into hiding. If we dive a little deeper into the Earth beyond the mall, we come across a peculiar factory. I personally find it really odd that this deep underground factory was in such close proximity to the mall. But what makes it even more strange is what is produced there. Judging by the things you encounter within the factory, it appears to be a place where weapons are manufactured and experiments are taking place. Throughout the factory, we're assaulted by missiles and plenty of shot zoe. There's also a slew of robot workers that are manning the assembly lines and machinery. In the background of the factory, you'll find several species floating in water in sort of a stasis. What they're being tested for is unknown, but it's definitely creepy and not something you would think of the first time you wander through this factory. At the end though is something quite interesting. You face off against a giant robot called HRH. Upon defeat, it transforms into a secondary form called HRE, before ultimately meeting its demise. However, this fight takes place in what appears to be an abandoned city. But this is what I find most interesting. HRH attacked you out of its own accord. It wasn't like the other living creatures that can be influenced by dark matter. It was programmed to destroy you on sight, and that sheds a little light on what is going on in Shiverstar. Based on all the evidence present, it appears the Ice Age wasn't what sent humanity into hiding or extinction, but rather mechanized invaders. But where do they come from? Back in the day, my thoughts would have instantly been Mechai. Mechai was the machine planet in Kirby Superstar. That was basically a metal dungeon. At the end, you face off against Heavy Lobster again, whose robotic figure is definitely similar to HRE. But with the addition of Planet Robobot, this certainly changed. In Planet Robobot, Popstar is overrun by a giant ship from outer space, owned by the Haltman Works Company. The mission is basically to use Popstar for all its valuable resources. They're going to suck it dry, so to speak, and use it for their own gain. It totally has a Smithy Gang vibe to it, except it's missing the giant sword. Now, in order to gather enough resources and expand their power, Popstar surely isn't the only planet this has happened to, especially with how fast things progressed right after they landed. Which takes us back to Shiverstar. I think this is what happened to Earth in some regards. We may not be able to see much mechanized landscape because of what is covered in snow, but the sprawling robot factory seems very fitting for the Haltman Works Company. Beyond that, part of their scientific ventures included cloning, and that may offer an explanation to what we're seeing going on in the background of the factory. This was a Haltman Works facility, and it goes even a bit deeper. The robot is called HRH that attacks you, with Haltman in mind. Instantly, I just imagined the initials standing for Haltman Robotics, with the model of the robot being represented by the last letter. After this planet was cleared of its resources, or halfway cleared, the company moved on to new ventures while operations still progressed. How this planet became an icy tundra is still a mystery, but some fan theories point to the aftermath of a nuclear war. I like to believe with a warship the size of your planet, just parking on top of it and drilling in with its huge mountain-high spikes though, that it could kick up enough debris into the atmosphere to block the sun and cause some insane global cooling. And there we have it, a solid explanation to the Shiverstar mystery. Shiverstar is the remains of an early Haltman Works assault, and in some ways set the stage for a game that wouldn't come out for another 16 years, which is absolutely mind-blowing. But hey, that's all just me spitballing some Kirby lore. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And with that, thanks for tuning in to this cold-hearted conundrum. Pick a video, any video. My lore is the deepest you'll find across the land. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and until my next video, cheers.